Hello all. So now we are into session number 23 and the topic for our discussion is the essay Tradition and the Individual Talent by T.S. Eliot. So in this session we will be focusing mainly on the second part of the essay where Eliot speaks about the theory of impersonal poetry. So we will be focusing on the second part of the essay. So the objective of this particular session is to look into the second part of the essay, the theory of impersonal poetry, and at the end of this session, you should be having a clear concept of what is T.S. Eliot meant when he said a poet should be impersonal in the process of poetic creation. So before we proceed further, let us try to revise and recapitulate what we learnt in the last session. As you all know, in the last session, that is session number 22, we looked into the part 1, the first part of the essay, where Eliot speaks about the importance of poetic tradition. So Eliot, in this essay, he calls himself as a classicist in literature and a royalist in politics and an Anglo-Catholic in religion. So if you analyze this definition where he defines himself and his belief and his approach towards life, it is very much clear that he himself proclaims that he is deeply rooted in the history and tradition. So that is why he says he is very classicist in literature and a royalist in political beliefs, and he is a very staunch Catholic in religious beliefs. So in this particular section, the first section, he explains the concept of tradition, where he expresses his disapproval that nowadays in the modern world people they look at tradition in a disapproving way, but we must change this mindset because a great poetry can arise only when the poet he understands the great tradition of poetry of the past. So what is this tradition according to Eliot? As I have already explained, it refers to a historical sense a poet should have. That a poet should have this sense that there lies a great history behind him which has produced wonderful plethora of literature, and he must carry the reflections of that literature in his contemporary poetic creation. So when I say he must carry the reflections of his earlier tradition, it doesn't mean to copy everything. It means that is to make sure that the essence of the past generation is present in the contemporary poetry. So according to T.S. Eliot, the tradition plays a very significant role in the process of poetic creation, and he also says that tradition is something dynamic. Okay, it is not static, it is not fixed at one particular historical period. Tradition is dynamic, it keeps on changing, and he also tries to understand the concept of tradition by explaining that tradition should not be understood in terms of binaries, okay, as if we create binaries, new versus old, past versus present, because tradition is something always associated with past. But what Eliot says that both past and present, they are complementary to each other, because the essence of past is reflected in the present, and the present scenario can change the entire past tradition. The same thing can be reflected even in poetry. So this is what Eliot explains in the first part of his essay, Tradition and the Individual Talent. So the first part deals with the concept of tradition. So now we are into the second part. As we all know that this essay is it comprises 3 sections. Now we are into the second section, the part 2, where Eliot he gives his understanding of this concept, that is the theory of impersonal poetry. So what one has to understand, or what to explain in brief what Eliot is um, trying to explain in this particular section, that a poet or a honest poetry has to be impersonal as much as possible. That is the main line of argument. So Eliot says that honest criticism of poetry and sensitive appreciation of poetry, it should be directed not upon the poet but upon the poetry itself. So he is making the process of depersonalization here. So this is the term which he uses. The process of depersonalization happen in the critical appreciation of poetry. One should not look into the poet, but we should look into the poem. So this is how you are taking the criticism from poet centric to the poem centric way. So this is what he calls as depersonalization. If you are familiar with new criticism school of thought, there are 2 or 3 important concepts which are introduced in new criticism. The first one is defamiliarization by a Russian formalist Viktor Shklovsky, where he explains how poetry defamiliarizes familiar things. In the same line of thought, here we are introduced to a concept called depersonalization, where honest criticism should focus itself towards poetry, not on the poet himself. So what Eliot is meant to explain here, that the progress of the artist the progress of the artist or the progress of the poet is a continuous self-sacrifice or a continual extinction of personality. This is also one of the important aspect in his theory of impersonal poetry, where he says, in order to become a great poet, a poet should self-sacrifice, and this process of continual extinction of personality will make him the part of great tradition. Okay, so this is his theory of, this is also an important aspect of his theory of impersonal poetry. So looking into the process of artistic creation, when a poem is created out of the creativity of the poet, what role poets should play, or what are the things a poet should keep in mind when this process of poetic creation happens. So here, to explain this and also to emphasize the significance of to be impersonal as much as possible in the process of poetic creation, Eliot, he compares the mind of the poet to that of a catalyst. Yes, this is a very important reference and example which he gives. He compares the poet's mind in the process of poetic or artistic creation to that of a catalyst. So if you are familiar with this term catalyst, so a catalyst is used in a chemical reaction to produce a new gas or a new element. So the mind of the poet should be that of a catalyst. For example, let me explain it by giving the example of a chemical reaction. So one example of a catalyst is platinum. So when a catalyst is introduced in a gas chamber which contains oxygen and sulfur dioxide, it combines and it forms sulfuric acid, H2SO4. So let me repeat, when platinum, the catalyst, is introduced into a gas chamber which is consisted of sulfur dioxide and oxygen, it results in the formation of sulfuric acid, very strong acid, H2SO4. But what happens in this process, even though you have the production of a new acid there, the platinum, the original catalyst, it remains unchanged, unaltered, it remains the same, though it plays a very significant role in the process of that chemical reaction, the catalyst, the platinum in this example remains unchanged. Similarly, in the process of poetic creation, the mind of the poet should remain unchanged. So the mind of the poet is like that of a catalyst. So where does these feelings and emotions go? So looking into the same example of chemical reaction, you can say the emotions and feelings are like oxygen and sulfuric acid in this particular chemical reaction, and the end result is sulfuric acid, which is the poem. But in the process, the catalyst platinum, it remains unchanged. So the mind of the poet creates various compounds, but he or she remains unchanged. So what we understand here, that a poet should be as impersonal as possible, as objective as possible in the process of poetic creation. His mind should not change, he should remain unchanged. While the mind of the poet is necessary for production, it is very much important, like a catalyst in any chemical reaction. What is important, that it remains and it emerges unaffected by the process of poetic creation. So what Eliot says, that the process of the extinction of personality should happen in the process of poetic creation. The poet's emotions and feelings must be depersonalized. He must be as impersonal as possible and as objective as a scientist. So if we look into the approach of scientists, when they do some scientific research, they remain as as objective as possible. Similarly, a poet should remain objective. So the poet's personality is merely a medium, like a catalytic agent or a receptacle in which chemical reactions take place, and it results in the creation of a new element, a new acid or a new compound. But the mind of the artist, the mind of the poet, it should remain unchanged. Okay. So in the next part, where he deals with the concept of theory of impersonal poetry, he comes to, or he looks into, the romantic criticism, the romantic poetry, and he focuses mainly into William Wordsworth's definition of poetry. I hope you are all familiar with romantic criticism. Let me not go deep into explaining what is romantic criticism, what are some of the important assumptions, preoccupations of romantic poetry. I will just explain in brief what is William Wordsworth's definition of poetry, because he belongs to this particular period of romantic poetry, so that we understand what Eliot is trying to suggest when he clearly rejects romantic theory of poetry, that too William Wordsworth's conception of poem or poetry. So William Wordsworth, as you all know, a very well known romantic poet. So according to him, poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions recollected in tranquility. That is how he defines poem or poetry. So for him, emotions play a very significant role in the process of poetic creation. So by this time, I think you must have understood what exactly Eliot is suggesting. Whereas romantic poetry gives importance to emotions, but Eliot here he says that emotion is not significant. What is important, that a poet should remain impersonal as much as possible. On the other hand, it is not the emotion which is significant in the process of artistic creation, but it is the experiences of the poet. The experiences, very important, remember. So you may have this question in the examination, how Eliot opposes romantic theory. So the main line of argument to answer this question is to explain that Eliot shifts the concept of poetic creation from emotions to that of experiences. So experience becomes very important. So for romantic poets, emotion is significant. So what Eliot says, it is not the greatness of the emotion which matters, but the intensity of the artistic process. Very important. Again, the second thing, the intensity of the artistic process, and this intensity comes because of the experience which poet gains and the pressure under which artistic fusion takes place that matters. It's not emotion. There are two things. The first one is intensity of the artistic process, and the second one is the pressure under which that artistic fusion takes place. So what is this pressure? Pressure refers to the societal conditions which compels that poet to write something, create poetry. So these things are it is not that a poet is sitting somewhere and all of a sudden, because of rush of emotions, he or she writes something. But what Eliot says, a good poetry comes out when you have the blend of experience and the pressure of societal conditions. So this results in great poetry. So T.S. Eliot completely dismisses romantic theory of self-expression, where emotions are recollected in tranquility, or poetry is spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So what Eliot says, that poetry is not turning loose of emotion, but it is an escape from emotion. Very important. It is not just letting loose your emotions, it is moving away from emotions. And emotion of art has to be impersonal, and it has nothing to do with the personal life of the poet. Very important. Okay, so let me repeat it. The emotion of art is impersonal, and it has nothing to do with the personal life of the poet or the emotions of the poet. To give an example, suppose if a poet is writing something, because he is in the mood of sadness, yes, that is significant in romantic theory of poetic creation, because emotion should overflow spontaneously. But in Eliot's theory of impersonal poetry, emotions are not significant. The intensity of artistic process, the experiences, and the pressure under which the artist produces the poetry. So for him, the poets who write about certain issues such as child labor, natural disasters, effects of industrialization, or in the contemporary situation, if someone writes about the trauma of pandemic, so all these things, they become significant in poetry. So you cannot write something just because your veins are rushing and and your body is full of emotions. It has to come out of your personal experiences rather than emotions. So this is very significant in the process of poetic creation. So what Eliot says, the more intense the artistic process, the more intense artistic process. So what is this artistic process? Blending of experience, yes, along with the pressure, societal pressures, it results in the greater poem. So the poet's mind is merely that of a catalytic agent. So it is in this context Eliot rejects William Wordsworth's theory of poetry, and Eliot he denounces romantic criticism, as I have already explained, saying that it gives too much importance to emotions rather than the experience. And in the process of poetic composition, there is neither emotion nor the recollection of tranquility. This is what Eliot suggests. Okay, for him, the process of artistic creation is more important than letting loose your emotions. So in the poetic process, there is only concentration of a number of experiences, and a new thing results from this concentration. Okay, so at the end there is one important very important statement which I have taken from the essay, that in the poetic process, when someone writes a poem, when a poet writes a poem, there is only concentration, yes, or coming together, clubbing of number of experiences that poet has in his or her life, and a new thing, that is poetry. The final product which comes out is the result of this concentration of experiences. Yes, so this is how one should analyze poetic creation. Okay, so let me explain it one more time in a single sentence how Eliot denounces or rejects Wordsworth's theory of poetry. He says poem or poetry is not just a recollection of our emotions or emotions recollected in tranquility, but it is the process of concentration of number of experiences and a new thing which results from this experience. The concentration of this experience is poetry. So in this particular section, second section of his essay, the second part of his essay, Eliot clearly rejects Wordsworth's theory of poetry, and the other thing we learnt is a concept of theory of impersonality. A poet should remain as impersonal as possible, and poets should be objective and impersonal. This is what he says, and we understood this by when Eliot says the mind of the poet should be that of a catalyst, because a catalyst at the end of any chemical reaction, it remains unchanged. So the process of artistic creation is also like a chain of reactions, and feelings and emotions are various compounds, gases and elements involved in it, but the ultimate product is the poetry. But in all this process, the mind of the poet should remain unchanged as a catalytic agent. So to sum up the entire argument is to understand two important things. The first one, a poet should remain impersonal and objective, and the second one is to understand poetry is not just overflow of emotions, it is a blend or it is a concentration of experiences which results in great poetry. So I hope this video is useful to understand the concept of the theory of impersonal poetry and how Eliot rejects Wordsworth's theory of poetry. So please go through the study material which is provided to you. So in the next session we will look into the final part, okay, a small section of this essay, the conclusion, where we will try to understand how Eliot concludes his arguments in this essay, the tradition and the individual talent. Thank you.